Calling the Rutherford County School System, January the 9th, work session to order. Let's please stand for the pledge, and Claire Maxwell has our visitor.
Hello. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
He was leaving me. As we enter into our moment of silence, we want to remember the family of Dr. Jimmy Sullivan and the loss of his stepfather, Bo Berlin. We also want to extend our sympathy to his mother, Nancy Berlin, and his brother, Kevin. Thank you.
Thought I'd do okay, but you got me on that one.
Sorry, honey. Now, you should have known well enough that I was going to do something.
I should have.
You should have. Let's take a look at the agenda. Do I have any questions, concerns, or comments on the agenda? Thank you. Let's take a look at the consent agenda. I'll give you a second or two to thumb through that.
Madam Chair, I've had a request for RFP 2308 branding and marketing for that to be by itself, just so that we can have discussion.
Okay, so we're going to pull RFP 23-08 branding and marketing project into the regular agenda for Thursday night. Is that correct?
Yes, and Ms. Williams, we can put it under, I guess, 11 financial matters.
Anything else, Dr. Sullivan? Anything from the board? We have a guest speaker tonight, Ms. Caroline Smith. Caroline, come on up. Jimmy, would you like to introduce Caroline, or would you like for me to?
I can.
Okay.
So I had the pleasure of hearing Caroline speak to several of our school administrators and instructional coaches, I guess back in December. So Caroline is a Blackman High Collegiate Academy student, and this is her capstone presentation, The Effects of Induction Programs on Beginning Teaching Retention, and we use our instructional coaches as one of our main ways, along with our administrators, for making sure we retain our beginning teachers. So, Ms. Smith, I will turn it over to you.
Hello. Adjust the microphone. I think that's important. Good evening. As Dr. Sullivan mentioned, my name is Caroline Smith. I'm a senior at Blackman High School, and I'm a part of the Blackman Collegiate Academy. And as a senior in the program, I, along with my peers, am required to write a literature review, conduct a project, present our research and our findings and our project in front of a panel of judges, and compile a portfolio of what we have learned throughout the semester. I completed all of this work this past semester and was invited to present my research with you all. I researched the effects of induction programs on beginning teacher retention. And the way that I got interested in this topic is quite simple. Both of my parents are teachers. My father's a principal. He used to be an instructional coach and a teacher. My mother is a middle school teacher at Blackman Middle. My aunt is a professor at MTSU, and my cousin wants to go into elementary education. So I am no stranger to the American education system. I grew up in it. I know the behind-the-scenes life of teachers. I see a different side to my teachers than most of my peers see. And during the pandemic, when the teacher shortage became a large subject on the news, I quickly grew interest. I was worried. I didn't know if it would affect me or my family, and I learned that it wouldn't directly, but in some ways it would. And that's why how I discovered the problem and why I wanted to find a solution. Before I go into what the problem is, where I may be speaking to the choir, I would like you to look at your mentor sheet. You were given 2 sheets. One has many colorful boxes. The other has leaves on the front. The one with leaves I call my ingredients for success sheet, and I will go into that more later. At the very top of either side, there reads a quote by C.S. Lewis that has been the governing quote throughout my whole project, and it reads, "The task of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts." And through a quick Google search, you will find that the word irrigate is where I focused most of my attention, because irrigation is the process of providing water and nourishment with the purpose of growth. So teachers, the modern educator, is not only supposed to help other teachers and help their students, but they're supposed to have this longing and this goal to care for their students, wanting them to improve and wanting them to grow. That's why having good teachers in the schools is such a big deal, and why losing those teachers is also a problem. The teacher shortage is not new, and the pandemic did not help one bit. Some people believe that the teacher shortage has been around since the 1800s, but it was really only documented in the 1970s when it was truly noticed. In 2019, there was a study that showed a potential rise of retention rates. There would be more teachers coming into schools in 2020. That state did not account for a 2-year pandemic. And because of that pandemic, teachers began to feel underappreciated. What would happen is little kids, little Johnny, let's say, would go to school, and he would be disrespectful, as some students are, and the teacher would have to deal with that. Well, then we all go home, and Johnny is now at home all day with his mother, and his mother realizes, my child is disrespectful, and says, "Hey, teacher, has he always been this way?" And she's like, "Yes, he has." And the parent says, "I'm so sorry. I appreciate all you have done." And teachers across the nation took a step back, realizing, well, we've never got this much appreciation at all at once. Well, thank you. Let's move forward together in helping your student, helping your child. Well, then Johnny goes back to school, and mother forgets. The mother also expects the teacher, along with a lot of others, to learn many new programs to help their child. When a teacher thought it would be a group effort, it's no longer a group effort. So now many teachers, even veteran teachers, feel unwelcome, unprepared, and unappreciated. And there's statistics that show that 50% of teachers leave within their first 5 years. 30 to 40% of those teachers leave within their first 3 years. Any study, any researcher you will see will categorize beginning teachers or novice teachers as under 5 years. So this balance of 0 to 3 years or 0 to 5 years was important for me in my research, as I'm focusing on beginning teachers and not veteran teachers. Having half of all teachers leave before they no longer are considered beginning teachers is a problem. And I'm sure that I don't have to say that to communicate that. As I said before, they feel unprepared, unwelcome, and isolated, because if you're in this environment where you have disrespectful students, and we all know that they're not compensated enough to deal with any of that, and you don't have someone to tell you how to do things, how to walk with you, even if you've been teaching for 20 years, but you've come into a brand new school, well, there's different dates, and there's different procedures, and there might be different programs, as different schools have different programs, and they don't really know how to do those things. And so teachers say, I can do much better things with my degree than doing what I am now, where I am not respected. And it's true, they aren't. So my idea is I'm thinking I can't change people's minds. I don't really want to design a whole new economic system for the United States of America. I don't want to look into salary. So how can I encourage teachers to try and help them stay in schools? And that's where these programs come in. I found within my research that 2/3 of all teachers work closely with a mentor. Well, 2/3 of beginning teachers work closely with a mentor. 9/10 of those mentees find their mentors helpful. And 22 out of the 50 states in America have state-funded mentor programs, and those programs are becoming more and more popular. There's certain aspects of the program that will help. If you look in I believe it's the top dark orange box in your sheet of colorful boxes, these same list that I'm looking at here, aspects of the program that help are the mentor and the mentee teaching the same subject. As a new English teacher has a veteran English teacher be their mentor, or even if a beginning teacher is teaching, let's say, college and career explorations, but they're the only one teaching college and career explorations, having another teacher that has taught it in the past would be a primary choice for a mentor. Having the same planning period also helps. Even though that takes away from their own personal planning time, there's a time there that they can meet and that they can not have to worry about outside of school or inside of school. They can feel free to go to each other. And I cannot stress this enough. Having required meetings within the programs is incredibly helpful. And to my knowledge, most, if not all, schools in Rutherford County do have required meetings within their mentor programs. But having those meetings and making sure that you're supposed to meet this many days a week, this many days a month, and you have to document them so we know that you are meeting and it's productive, is helpful to the instructional coaches and to the teachers, because I found it's the community aspect of these mentor programs that are keeping the teachers in schools. If you saw in the past aspects, it's all talking about the mentor and the mentee working together. Despite that, there are aspects that have little to no effect, that are helpful for the mentee, but not as helpful, such as a mentee having a teacher aide, or an extra planning period, or less classes, a reduced schedule, or even going to seminars and in-services, where you are learning educational tools that you can use, but no one really wants to go to them often. And they aren't, there might be an icebreaker or a social activity, but there isn't, I have one person that I can always go to, and I have questions for them, but I don't know where they are, or I have these tools, but how do I put them in? Not having someone through these things is what can make a beginning teacher feel isolated. There's that community aspect again. A beginning teacher needs a mentor to learn how to help their students, to help themselves, and to irrigate their students and help them grow. They need someone to give them the resources that wants them to grow so that they can do the same to students. Now, what about the mentors and the mentees? I talked about the programs. If you would look again at that mentor and mentee sheet, that is for you to keep. There are two sides to that sheet. The one says mentors and one says mentees. There are different bullet points on that sheet. I got those pieces of advice from the mentors and mentees at Blackman, as well as my own research that I included in my literature review. The teachers at Blackman said multiple different things, some of which I'm going to point out to you. On the mentor side, if you can look at the first bullet point, the mentor side, it's underlined, and it says, establish a good level of trust with your mentee. Having this level of trust is good because if you don't feel comfortable with each other, then obviously you're not going to want to meet more, and you're not going to have that bond, because again, it's the bond that we're looking for. Having that level of trust, a lot of mentor programs I see will take teachers that have already known each other in the past. My teacher mentor for my capstone project, she had been teaching for 5 years before coming to Blackman as a first-year teacher at Blackman, but her mentor, they had known each other previously. When my dad was a first-year teacher, he knew his mentor was his 7th or 8th grade English teacher. They had already established a level of trust. They had already known each other. So if that's possible, subject-wise, room-wise, planning period-wise, that's an easy yes as a potential mentor. If not, making sure that they are meeting and that they feel comfortable with each other, that the personalities match, and that they're able to talk and be with each other comfortably is incredibly important in building that level of trust. If you move down to the 9th bullet point in that same list, it's the 4th from the bottom. It's also underlined, and it says, consistent communication is key. I like alliteration, so that's why we use those words. Always communicating things, not only here's how you can educate students, but also here's the homecoming date, here's how picture day works, because everyone knows that it's chaotic and it's crazy. Here's how this day is going to work, here's how this break is going to work. Oh, well, they just changed this policy, so now we have to adapt to this. Having a mentor always talking to their mentee, communicating anything that they learn so that their mentee can know it, even if they had already heard it, so that they can hear it again, so that they know again, so that they're comfortable, so they have this information. If you flip that sheet over, you will go to the mentee side, and I'd like to point out 2 bullet points there as well. The first one, as well as this one on the back, it says being willing to communicate. Just as the mentor is supposed to talk to the mentee and is often the first one to spark those conversations, the mentees need to be willing to listen. Often it's hard for us as human beings to accept critical advice and constructive criticism. And I know that I've had an issue with that, and through my high school career, I've had to learn how to take criticism well, and I think that's something that we all have to learn as we grow and develop in ourselves. So having a mentee being willing to communicate and willing to learn and wanting to learn is important, and something that a mentee, if they're looking at this sheet, can see on their own. The 12th bullet point, it's the 3rd from the bottom, because I'm not going to make you count all the way down to 12. It talks about making your mental health a priority. I said before that I had made a Microsoft form that I had given to the mentors and mentees at Blackman High School, which they filled out, and half of them said that they wanted to talk, if they would advise anything to their mentee, to any new teacher, what would they say? Everyone talked about breaks, or their family, or mental health. They would always say, spend time with your family, if applicable. Make sure you take time for your own religion, if applicable. Take breaks doing things that you love with the people you love, so that when you come back into school, you're refreshed, and you're calmer, and you're ready. Your mind is ready, because if your mind is going at 1,000 miles per minute, that's not healthy for any occupation, and surely not for teachers when you're trying to give that information out to other people who may or may not want to receive it. So making sure that your mental health, and you're taking breaks, and you're being calm, and you know who you are, and you're getting help if you need it, making sure that your mind is ready to teach is important as well. I enjoyed this project, and I've enjoyed being here, and I've enjoyed talking to you all. Thank you all for this opportunity. Do you have any questions?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
In all this, I think I didn't know this, and so I think for me it's really eye-opening to know that 50% of teachers leave the first 5 years. And before they're considered veteran, I guess, or beginner teachers. So that's pretty. The other statistic is just as important, but that's pretty alarming to me, that half of the teachers are ready to walk out the door and get a second path. And with that, I know we have a mentor program in Blackman and probably all of our schools, but with the teachers that are getting the Teacher of the Year award, as part of building, and I do agree with the community, building a community, a sense of community within your schools, or even outside of the schools within the district, of having some time where we can offer a special session with the Teachers of the Year, where the teachers can come and ask them questions and kind of give them feedback, or even ideas, or guidance of of the questions that they may have with problems that they may have, because if they got the teacher of the year, it's because they're excelling at it. That's what I would think. Not that a lot of our teachers are excelling, but just getting that recognition, I personally will want, if I'm a teacher, would want to ask them, because I want to get that recognition. If I'm having difficulty with something, maybe we can have like a time where we can open it to the whole county and have like an informal session where they can come and have like a mentor type time.
Thank you.
That might be a good idea. I don't know a lot about the Ignite program, considering that it was brand new this year. From what I do know, it's that it was made and promoted by the instructional coaches that run the programs in the schools to have a day where the beginning teachers can learn about the Rutherford County Schools, about you all, get their HR things and their paperwork and finances completed so that when they go back to school and they're released to their own personal schools, that it's easier. That might be a good thing to include in that program as it strengthens and as it builds and as it becomes more firm and integrated into the instructional programs and the schools in Rutherford County.
And then the other thing, I know I've talked to Dr. Shasteen about this before, about when it comes to behavior and helping the first year teacher and giving them guidance or tools of how to overcome some of the behavioral problems that are occurring in the schools. And I'm surprised that in the classrooms, and I'm surprised that it didn't come out that behavior is one of the contributing factors of them being burnt out and ready to leave. Because even today, I'm in a classroom with a first-year teacher, and she's doing amazing and very well. But I'm there because she has a very disruptive child. And so I'm there to help support that. So, there are some behavior that is not so out there, but there's other behavior that can be curbed if the teacher has the right techniques and tools and how to keep the child focused and on track without having to make it even a bigger problem. So I guess my question is, do we have tools where we can help the teachers kind of mitigate those kind of smaller things so that it doesn't become eventually a bigger problem if your first year teacher doesn't have kids and hasn't been in that role before?
So in no way am I going to say this is perfect. It is a work in progress. But she is correct. The Ignite program included a second day where it was focused on some of our staff giving classroom management strategies. And then obviously none of that would matter without the work of the instructional coaches in the building. And so we do have several structures district-wide in place to give them support, and we have several training programs that we utilize, but really it comes to how can we protect the time of instructional coaches who are the ones with the most contact, and the mentors, and that was just on an agenda item that we had in a meeting yesterday. So that is, again, a work in progress. I'm going to use some of your research if you're okay with that.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe we can put some of that in as a video module. So that way we don't have to go to the structure time. We have it recorded and we can just let them look at it on their own. And if they need to use it as a resource, they can go back to it at a time and time again without having to go and ask questions and go to the instructional. They have it there and they can just, go back to it and refresh themselves if they need it.
I would be remiss if I didn't say that the HR department and instruction department work really closely on this, and I feel like in Rutherford County, our retention rate is higher than that statistic as far as nationwide. And I would like to, I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to say we try really hard to support our first-year teachers. If other teachers in other districts do not feel supported, they could please come to Rutherford County where
We have a place for you.
Right. No, I do agree that our district is one of the better districts, and we're doing a lot of right things and good things, and it shows, because this year particularly we had a really good, strong response, and our vacancies are nowhere near what it was like the year before. So yeah, I agree, we do, absolutely.
Mr. Tidwell?
Hey, thank you for sharing this information with us. Very relevant. Of course, you get a captivated audience here on this particular subject. So I'm just want to say I'm thankful that you put this together and for the Collegiate Academy as well, the different programs that are offered. It's amazing, the work that's being done. My only question to you, though, is are you then going to follow the path of your parents?
It's definitely in my mind. I'm kind of half and half. I plan to go to Lee University and attend there for my undergraduate degree. I plan to major in English. That's always something that I've loved. I love grammar and literature and everything about English, and their English program is nice. I've met the honors program, that English professor. I would, as long as he doesn't retire, Lord willing, that I can take his class, which is entitled, it's supposed to be titled Rhetoric and Reading, but he retitled it How to Read Intellectually with Enjoyment, and that's awesome, and I love it. So I do plan to attend there. The dream is to become an author. That's my hope, but it's not very easy to make money on books very quickly, and there's many teachers at Blackman, and I know many people that do teach on the side while they're writing books, while they're getting a name, while they're making some money, or even using it as a second income. Because I know that most teachers, it's true that they aren't compensated enough. A lot of teachers, if there isn't a second income in the house, then a lot of teachers do have a second job. And that would be an option for me. I know that either teaching or becoming an author, until I become world famous, I am subscribing myself to a life of poverty either way. So I might as well combine the two and get both done at the same time.
We are hiring part-time authors.
I do have a advice.
Yes, ma'am.
Since you want to become an author, grow your social media platform. Start now that you're young. Because that's something that publishers would definitely look at is your following. It plays more into it now than it ever did before.
I did get Instagram last spring.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My comment is to Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Your daughter, I know you're certainly proud of her. She's very lovely and well-poised. Congratulations. And we do hope you make your way back to the classroom one way or the other.
Yes, ma'am. And if I do go anywhere, if I can go anywhere, I would come to Rutherford County.
Oh, honey, you don't have to worry about that. We have you covered.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Dr. Sullivan?
does Tennessee have a state-funded mentor program?
That's something in the article that I found about state-funded programs. I thought for a while that the Ignite program was our state-funded program, but it's not. It's district-funded. So I couldn't tell you if Tennessee does.
We don't. I can answer it. It was a trick question. Tennessee does not have one.
But I do know that they're becoming more and more popular, and I know that certain practices within mentor programs are becoming more and more popular as well. Some practices that Rutherford County has, and some of them that they don't. Some of them that I learned about today, which is why I didn't include them in my presentation, but I can talk about what I know. However, I guess
Yes,
you
were spot on because I think our average teaching experience, is it under 10 now? I know it's got to be way under 10, 7 probably. Yeah, and so it used to be in the mid-teens, and now our average teaching experience is 7. When you're looking at it from an instructional coach, every school has 2, and our large high schools have 2 instructional coaches, and it is not uncommon to have 20 or 30 new teachers for them in a school year, just partially because of growth and just overall retirement. And so that is a lot of people working with a very few number of people working with a whole lot of teachers.
I understand that Blackman this past year had 31 incoming new teachers. I think 31 incoming new teachers. So I talked to our instructional coaches today, and they were talking about things that they've had to do money-wise to get funds. I remember them as a part of my project, I spoke at one of the meetings talking to some of the mentees in the beginning of some of the class periods one day in late October. And they had like a little Halloween snack bar, and you could use scoops and make your own Chex Mix with marshmallows and chips. And it was really cool and really yummy because I had marshmallows all day. It was great. But that funding had to come from somewhere, and that funding isn't given to them. So that was something that they pointed out to me. And if there was, and I am not here to convince, but I am here to advocate, if there's any way that money could come to instructional coaches or even stipends for mentors. I'm not economically based. I have friends that are. I am not. There's a reason that I did not design a new economic system for the United States of America as a part of my capstone project. There's a reason for that. So I don't know how that would work. However, I do know that for Blackman, we don't have a mentor shortage. We currently have a beginning teacher shortage. That's always an issue. We always have a teacher shortage, and we always are looking at how to keep and retain our beginning teachers, hence my project. However, a mentor shortage may very well be coming soon if we don't focus on and appreciate the mentors that we have. Because for right now, I know that Blackman has, you get to pick where your morning duty is, and you can wear jeans on Monday. And for right now, I think I get to wear jeans most every day, and I don't have to do morning duty. And yet, I find appreciation in my friends and in my family, and it's wonderful and it's amazing. However, some teachers don't have such close ways that they can find gratitude from their work, especially from their school board. So I know I cannot tell you anything as I am a student. However, I do want to advocate for the mentors. I've met with most of them. Some of them are my teachers. They're wonderful, wonderful people. And I know that you all know this as you employ them and you have been them at different points. So if I can encourage anything, it would be to honor those mentors and these instructional coaches to create more funding for those programs. I know that I truly did think that the Ignite program was a part of the mentor program. It is not. However, if there is a way to, and I think Ms. Rosales, did I say that correctly? As you said, talking about, I don't know what you said at the beginning, and I forget, but I remember you said something about it, about adding something to Rutherford County and what you all could do to impact that, and I believe that there is something that can be done. I don't know what it is, but I know that it's out there. So.
I appreciate you bringing us this information to kind of put it in the forefront and not in the back of the mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Because this is something that we do, even though we're doing great things, we need to continue cultivating it
Yes, ma'am.
so that we can continue having that legacy.
Rutherford County is, I mean, not biased, the best county. But as I think, I'm like, I always think, like, I'm a pretty good person. Like, I'm okay, but there's always room for me to grow, always ways that I can grow. And I'm young, and there's days that I'm going to be incredibly tired and super rejuvenated, and even, I was going to say my 97-year-old relative. I don't have a 97-year-old relative. But if I had one, even they would have room to grow and expand. So I think that's something we can do personally. And while this Ingredients for Success sheet for mentors and mentees, that's what that's for, is for them to grow personally. I didn't mention it, but I'm going to mention it now while I have the microphone, that I sent out a digital form of this sheet and a physical copy of this sheet to the mentors while I was at the November meeting that Dr. Sullivan mentioned when I was first being introduced. They have that resource. It is their choice to use it or not. I'm not going to look through the school windows and make sure they are, because that would be really weird, and I'm moving to Lee, so that wouldn't be a possibility. However, that's what this sheet is for the teachers to look at themselves and see, well, how can I change? How can I grow? How can I become the best mentor or the best mentee so that we can create this bond, so that we can stay in schools, so that the students can learn and grow better and become everything that they can be. And I would also like to thank you all for all that you do, because I have said before, I'm in a family of educators, and I know the pain, and I know it's hard, and I know it's a struggle, and that you all may not get as much appreciation, just like our teachers do. So I'd like to say thank you to you for making Rutherford County as wonderful and fabulous as it is. And thank you for having these meetings so that we can all grow and work together, and inviting students like me to participate, because it looks really, really good on college resumes. And it's a way that we can all work together for the betterment of the county and the state and the world. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Justin, would you bring your family up here and just introduce them to us? I'm sorry, Justin's one. No, I didn't teach him, Katie. Margaret Moore did. But I went to church with Justin when he was just a little bitty boy and watched him and his wonderful sister grow up. And I was in his mother's Sunday school class for many, many years. And I called Justin and told him he was getting his job at Blackman. Do you remember that? Please introduce your family to us.
My lovely wife, Marcia, she teaches 7th grade science at Blackman.
Justin Smith. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here.
We'll give you a chance to run out in the cold. Thank you, Caroline. We will start with number 8, Human Resources.
John, can you go to tab 2 just so everyone can see it? So this is our 24-25 signing bonus incentive for hard-to-staff subject areas. So this signing bonus incentive for hard-to-staff subject areas is submitted to the state each year. It's presented to the board for approval. A couple things that I wanted to just hit on real quick is very similar to what we've done in the past, but I do think it's nice to highlight what all we consider hard-to-staff. So you'll see 612 math, English, ESL, chemistry, physics, world languages, and special education, and then including all the different areas. You see the criteria, but I think it is amazing to see all the different endorsement codes that teachers can hold that will give this hard-to-staff bonus for. So quite a few. Basically, you can see with special education, anybody and everybody that has a special education degree in any shape or form. Thank you, HR, for working on this. I know it's something we do every year. One we've had quite a bit of success with. If you'll scroll to student teachers, you'll see if somebody's student teaches with us, they have a one-time signing bonus of $1,500, and then it's paid $750 in the fall and spring if during their student teaching residency they go ahead and they sign up with us. Another change for this year is going to be retirees. Retirees, as I mentioned, have saved us. So retirees must teach in one of those hard-to-staff certified areas above, and those retirees receive a $5,000 incentive. And so that saves us in multiple ways because they've been an employee, gets some of our more veteran teachers back. What is removed from this? We did remove hard-to-staff schools. I think I let the board know that back in December at some point. Right now, we have hard-to-staff schools for certified teachers of Roy Waldron, Laverne Middle, and Laverne High. So it's definitely been beneficial to retain teachers in those schools, but we still have high rates of turnover, and then we also have schools that are in very similar situations right beside them that it's not a sustainable model for us to be able to do. We are looking at, Brian, do you know roughly how much we paid out in hard-to-staff bonuses and all that type of stuff last year by chance?
Just for the hard-to-staff and schools bonuses, it was over $2 million.
And so you're looking at 0.5% just for 3 schools. And so looking at district-wide, that's hard to be able to sustain. So that all 3 principals know, but we wanted to be upfront and honest with that.
Okay. Ms. Sharp?
Yes, thank you, Chair Lady. I've been speaking to several teachers, and I've spoken to Dr. Sullivan about this before, maybe other board members as well, but there are a lot of people who live in Rutherford County, but they work for Metro. The hang-up for them coming is we've made adjustments in the salary. The adjustments is them getting paid once a month. I know there's an issue with that, but that wouldn't cost us anything, and we could phase that into the system. It doesn't have to be something that, January 1, we're going to have everybody on that payroll system. But there are so many people that want to come to Rutherford County because we have made things much better, but they don't want to because they only get paid once a month.
Ryan, isn't that something that's been looked at?
It has been, but it's in a combination with us and the county. Since the county is the one who processes our payroll, they would have to be the one to make the decision to do a bi-weekly or twice-a-month payroll system. So it's not my decision, it's the county.
But we're looking at something that's costing us $2 million, $2 million plus a year, when this would cost us zero.
It would be nice. Something we need to maybe push for. Ms. Darby?
Are all of them being paid out twice, once in the spring and once in the fall?
Yes, once in the spring, once in the fall.
So even for the retirees? Okay.
They are.
It just wasn't listed on there, so I wasn't sure.
They are, and we hold it till the very far end as we can to make sure that someone stays as far as we can.
I thought that was, but they were broken out in the other pieces and not in that one, so I just
They
wasn't
are.
sure.
And it is, you mentioned biweekly, our classified staff are already paid biweekly. We have over 3,000 certified staff, and so that's something the county has to agree, but I agree wholeheartedly. I worked in another system, it was biweekly, and it was very nice.
Just me being a younger self with being a single parent, it would be very, very
Hard. I did notice that there was English 007 listed. Let me whip out my licensure and we'll check and see.
You'll be
You know
off
what's so
the-
good, it kind of separates us on the retirees. I had some of the HR directors email me this week, and of course, they're jealous of our signing bonus. It is that we pay our retirees for their years of experience and their degrees, whereas most of the districts are paying them at the very beginning.
Beginning salary.
And so that makes it exceptional.
Mrs. Brett,
And
where
we
are you teaching
appreciate
next
that.
year?
Where am I teaching?
I'm just curious, yes. Have you picked out a school yet?
Don't you even tempt me, Dr. Sullivan. Actually, Dr. Chastain, my other love is new teachers and new teacher induction, and I'm going to brag a minute. You know who established the very first new teacher induction in 1996? You did. You are exactly right, Ms. Rosales. Thank you. I did the very first one. And Dr. Ray Buttram, and thank God for him because he hired us both, right, Dr. Sullivan? Anyone else? Oh. Okay. Legal?
All right, Madam Chairwoman, how would you like me to go through all these? This is the
I would
third
like
time
for
this
you
evening.
not to read those because we have had these read to us.
I-
And now, if you have a question or you need to make a comment, that's perfectly all right, but I think after this amount of time, we've looked at this is our second reading, and I would like for you to just go through this as quickly as you possibly can.
They are all there presented for the second and final reading.
There we go. Do we have any questions or comments? Thank you. Instruction.
All right, so we have ACT Boot Camp teacher training. So we have 92 teachers across the district. We'll train approximately 2,600 students from March 2nd through March 11th, 2024 to prepare students for the upcoming March 12th ACT test. This ACT Boot Camp opportunity will be provided to students free of charge, a $525 savings per student if they were to attend independently. 92 teachers will agree to an hourly rate of $50 for no more than 27 hours. 27 hours consists of 4 hours on February 3rd or February 10th, and 8 hours on Saturday, March 2nd. Additional after-school sessions on March 4th through 8th and March 11th will total 15 hours. All expenses will be paid with ESSER 3.0 funds, and teacher stipends will not exceed $127,031.85. And this is our second year and went very well last year.
Thank you. Do I have any questions? Comments? Yes, sir.
What kind of participation did we have last year?
I'm sure you're all right. Dr. Martin answers. This was her.
Yes.
This is Dr. Martin's
Dr.
baby
Martin.
here, so.
So each of our schools last year could have up to 120. We went over in a few and a little less in others. For example, Holloway does not necessarily have that many students. And so we had full capacity at almost all of our schools, and we even had some overflow as well. This year, sorry, you opened the door, so I'm excited about this. This year, we are also differentiating this ACT boot camp, so we will have half of our 120 students will have the opportunity to participate if their goal is still reaching that 21 on the ACT. We will also have a second course that's going on simultaneously that is for students who have a goal or have already met the 21 goal and they're trying to make a 25 or higher. Which will also just open more door and opportunities for those students, but also serve those students that sometimes they've already hit that 21 mark, but should also increase our Rutherford County ACT average as well.
And so more concentrated tiers, basically.
Yes, sir. It's, meeting more of the specific needs of their students and their individual goals.
Awesome. Great opportunity.
Starby?
Do you know when they'll be announcing that to the parents in the district?
That, as soon as it's approved here, then we will start announcing that. Flyers are ready to go.
Anyone else? Okay, number 2.
All right, number 2 is the Charter Review Committee. So we have Mr. Jeff McCann, Chair, Trey Lee, Facilities, Dr. Mark Gullion, Special Populations and Economically Disadvantaged, Dr. Andy Ralston, SPED, Shannon Kaywood from Finance and Budget, Ann Haley for K5 is our coordinator, Barbara Powers is our coordinator for 6-8, Dr. Kyle Nix is our principal, Kelly Goosetree is a principal for, and you see we have 2 applicants. Eric White, we had, I don't remember, Mr. McCann, I think it's over there. How many parents did we have that? And so we have 2 spots, 1 for each one. And so Eric White for Nova Smart Academy. Do these people know yet? Okay. Okay, perfect. Victoria Fowler for Rocket Ship. And then right now we have Mr. Young on both of them. I think in talking with you, I don't think that's what we want to do is have a...
No. I'm going to add a board member to one of the charter school applications, and I'm adding Claire Maxwell. If you've done this, you know it is very time-consuming, and to think about doing both is just too much. So we're going to separate this, and so let's add Claire Maxwell.
And applications are due February 1. I would envision we will get an application from both of them, but there's always that possibility you don't. I would also not expect them to be completely the exact same review style because you have different people reviewing your different charter ones. Mr. McCann, I have all the belief in the world that you are going to be the first chair to do it a second year. All the belief in the world.
Me too.
You're so bad.
Dr. Sullivan, since there were questions about the parents.
Yes.
I just wanted to let the board know that we did a random number generator to draw the parents from the list. We just made sure everybody was available, and then, so that was still hundreds that were on that. So we recorded it just in case you need that. So that is how we approach the parent volunteers.
Good.
Great point.
I would like for Mr. Young to be on the Novus Smart Academy and for Claire Maxwell to do the Rocket Ship K5. Questions, comments? Thank you. Next.
All right, the next ones don't necessarily involve a motion, but just so that policy has the chair naming these committees, but we worked with our curriculum instruction department, myself, and Chairwoman Bratton has assembled a committee to rename the building currently serving as Roy Waldron Annex. This committee will select the name, colors, and mascot for the new school.
You ready? For the naming of the Roy Waldron Annex, we have Tammy, who is their board member, Laura Davidson, Annie Ralston, Kay Martin, and parent Brittany Brown.
Sorry, Kay, I forgot to tell you.
Oh, sorry, Kay. No, I haven't gotten all these people because I haven't told them yet. So now they're down. They're on it.
We'll move on to the next one.
On to the next one.
Next, we have the naming of the Church Tree site. So again, Curriculum Instruction Department Assistants, the Director and Chair has assembled a naming committee to select the name, colors, and mascot for the current Church Street location. All yours.
All right. Have Claire Maxwell, our board member. We have Kelly Chastain, Diana Brown, Mary Lee Peterson, and Commissioner McAdoo.
And as much as I really would love it to be orange and white and volunteers, it won't be.
Okay.
I feel like being an alternative school may not be the best color choice.
No, I thought about that too. So,
Maybe.
Watch out, Dr. Sullivan, she might go for Commodores now.
I know, that would be very fitting. We can go ahead and do that one too. It's just not on here, but it doesn't require a board motion.
Doesn't require,
This
right.
is all in board policy. And so next we also have Beatty Elementary Project. And so that is also ready to be named.
Be Katie Darby, who is their board person, John L. Beatty, Ann Haley, Lori Gober, and Phil Wilson.
Great.
Financial matters.
All right, so this is a pretty big one. So if you can pull up that tab as well. So Fund 141 budget amendment, this budget amendment cleans up expenditure line items at mid-year. So on the revenue side, the budget is amended to reflect the state grant allocations and additional TISA revenue. On the expenditure side, the larger items of this cleanup amendment reflect increase in costs of school maintenance supplies and parts, instructional support supplies and materials, homebound 504 contracted services, maintenance contracted services, and maintenance instructional equipment. Also, the amendment includes adjustments to salary lines for additional approved ESL growth positions, bonuses for hard-to-staff schools, nursing growth positions, reclassified pay grade for behavioral EAs, and the transfer salaries to the correct account codes. This amendment has a net increase of both current year revenue and expenditures of $3,729,367 with no use of fund balance. So basically, we have extra expenditures but extra revenue to cover that. This is one of those, when we added like the ESL positions earlier in the year, we talked about we would get additional state funding for ESL positions we were waiting on from last year's students. We just didn't have our new numbers yet. So.
Dr. Sullivan? Yeah, I'm sorry. Where is that at?
All, what do you mean where?
The number that you just quoted was in excess of
$729,367. And so you'll also see it under that tab. This has all of our different account codes.
Okay.
And in those different account codes, you'll see that we have $1,757,546 coming from TISA. And so that's coming partially from our, is that our outcome bonus? That was our fast growth district. And then you'll see we also this year did not add in the early childhood education grant yet. And so we're using that $1,971,821 from the early childhood education grant that we accepted, I guess, back in October or November. So that's where that extra $3.7 million comes from.
Look, I didn't read that, the first tab, like the first sheet said your increases and the other one was your decreases.
Yep. So it matches. One more thing I'd hit on.
Go right ahead, Dr. Sullivan.
So this is something that really just depends on how your financial team really wants to do it. Some districts don't do it until they do a very end of the year cleanup. We like to do it twice a year, middle of the year and end of the year, just so we have an accurate track of expenditures and revenue. So if you get questions that this wasn't done by previous finance directors, we did this last year as well. And then this will be our second time doing it. It's easier for us, just like at your home checkbook, if you keep track of it and move things around as you need to.
Mr. Tidwell.
You're just saying that you just basically keeping a check in the middle to see where we're at, what direction we need to go. Quick note on the $1,757,546, the TISA part, you said that was part of the fast growing bonus? Okay.
As part of the fast growth that we got from last year's enrollment, not counting this year's enrollment yet. So this is always a year behind.
Dr. Sullivan, that was actually the outcomes because we got that paid out before. So the growth funding gets paid out in increments. So there's 5 different growth funding payments, but the outcomes payment all came in at one time. So it's already been sent to the county for them to process. So it's already in.
Correct, not fast growth, it's outcomes.
Thank you for the clarification.
Anyone else?
What was our actual outcomes? Do you remember?
It was a little over $4 million. So I didn't budget it all in there because I may need it for later. So I just used the amount that I needed to balance this amendment.
So just so everyone knows, we're trying to be smart about it as well. If there's extra that we need towards the end of the year to cover something with the way our HVAC units have been going out lately, with the temperature next week, just in case.
Number 12, engineering and construction.
This is request for Riverdale High School. Sorry.
Gotta hit the pull out.
Oh, you're correct. So the one we pulled out from consent agenda, which would be bid number, so tab 1.7, John, if you can go to tab 1.7. So this is our branding and marketing project. So you see the ones that responded, we mailed it to 18 vendors, 11 vendors didn't respond. Our recommended motion is to award to Rhodes Branding for overall best bid. Committee of 6 individuals were on the panel to review the bids. All 6 individuals recommended Rhodes Branding. Rhodes Branding included everything in their price to complete this project except any travel that may be needed. And in talking with Brian, to be funded through general purpose fund or federal funds, we're going to write it up to fund out of ESSER 3.0 because we have a June 30th deadline to allocate all funds from ESSER 3.0. And so that's where we're looking to pull this. Couple purposes for this. One is to just give us an overall view on branding for our entire district. We also know with increased competition for students, we want to make sure we're hitting on everything we need to be, making sure that we're telling our own story as well.
Questions? Anyone else? Thank you. Now, engineering and construction, number 1.
All right, request for Riverdale High Stadium turf. Principal Tamara Blair is requested to move forward with a new synthetic turf field for the Riverdale High Stadium. Engineering Construction has reviewed the request and recommends approval. Funding will be from private donations at no cost to the board. Estimated budget is $1 million and a bank loan by Wilson Bank and Trust.
Questions? You okay, Claire?
I am
Okay.
very, very excited about this. And truly will look like a brand-new school when you get those additions and now the turf too. So, yeah, I'm very excited.
Great.
And it's all tore up anyhow right now, so why not tear it up a little bit more? So,
Anyone else? Number 2.
Request for Oakland High School CTE agricultural barn construction. Principal John Marshall in the CTE department are requesting to build a barn for the FFA program and start a new innovative animal science facility. Engineering Construction has reviewed the request and is providing assistance with the plans and approval process with the city. This project will be funded through the Innovative Schools Grant and anticipated cost is $300,000. Projects recommended is presented at no cost to the board. And I would anticipate a lot more of these from other high schools as they start looking through which programs they want to build. And we have our scheduling meeting starting with high schools. When are those? This week. And so I would anticipate this starting.
Okay. Mr. Tidwell?
Yes, what's the total funding out of this grant?
17 million.
And doesn't it have to be used up by?
Has to be allocated by
Or
September 26th. Is that correct? September 26th.
September 26. And I'm sorry, what was the original number?
17 million.
70 million. Awesome.
Million for high schools, 500,000 for middle.
Great.
Anyone else? Number 3.
All right, request for architectural design service. The board previously approved 4 architects to provide services for Rutherford County Schools at the December 23 board meeting. Below are 7 projects of immediate need for, where am I? For design services. So the first one is renovation of 2 classrooms at Eagleville High School for special education. You'll see the budget's $50,000 to $75,000. Laverne Primary / Roy Waldron Annex, interior finishes, casework, minor renovations, approximately 66,400 square feet. Budget's 1.5 to 2 million. 814 South Church Street remodel, 3-story building, 12,000 square feet. Budget's 1.5 million. Central Magnet STEM building renovations, 2,500 square feet. Budget of 350,000. Riverdale High Broadcasting classroom renovation, budget 50,000. Transition Academy, 2 buildings, approximately 3,000 square foot each, budget 750,000, and then Laverne High School addition, approximately 100,000 square feet, and the budget of 40 million. My recommendation is to use 1 through 6. So again, we have 4 architects, so it can take any way that you want to take this. We're fine to work with whoever we need to. My recommendation is 1 through 6 to use Sherman, Carter, and Barnhart, and then for number 7. Because it is the same design that we've already started working on 2 years and a month ago. Laverne High School was one of the original 5 additions, and we already have a design. For timing and the way we got the Smyrna High School bid, I'd recommend that we go with Goodwin, Kaywood, and did I get their name right? No, Godwin, Mills,
GMC.
Kaywood.
Goodwin, Mills, and Kaywood.
Always GMC. I'm gonna start saying GMC, and that's it. So that's my recommendation, but we can take it any way, slice it any way anybody wants to.
And I will say one thing, just for the board's knowledge, we don't usually bring the smaller projects before y'all because in the past, we've been able to do the drawings ourselves and submit them to the state. The state no longer allows us to do that. We have to pay an architect to do what we can do in-house. But because we're not licensed architect, we have to, all projects that affect students now, renovations, unless we're just changing a ceiling tile or something like that, we now have to hire a licensed architect to do the drawing and submit it to the state fire marshal's office. So it's going to take longer to do and become more cumbersome.
Ms. Sharp?
Coy asked as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was he first?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, go ahead.
See if the state's going to pay for this.
As with normal things from the state, it's a new unfunded mandate.
That's Mr. Young's favorite mandate, the new unfunded, right, sir? Ms. Sharp?
Thank you. So my question, are we going to need any funds or is there any projects for Roy Waldron Annex? Are we doing anything there?
Yeah, that's the Laverne primary. It should say Roy Waldron.
Okay.
Laverne primary.
Yeah, annex.
We internally go back and forth on what we call it still.
No, I can't.
I mess it up too.
It's going to have a new name.
It's okay, just want to make sure.
It is going to have.
You're going to fix it, and it's going to have a new name, and
Okay.
we're going to know. Other questions?
Ms. Bratton, so this is just for the drawing for all of this? This is not for the actual work?
Correct.
So the 40 million is for the architect?
No,
No,
that's,
those are the budgets for the projects
Oh, these are-
themselves.
okay.
So that we know the budgets, now I can go ask for the fees.
Oh,
Once
okay.
y'all have determined who we're going to use, then I'll go ask them for their fees based on these budgets.
Okay, but what we're going to be voting for tomorrow is for the architect to
Architect.
do the drawing for all of these?
Yes.
Not for the work?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to.
Then once they do the drawings, we'll put it out for bid. And when we get the bids, I'll need to come back to you all for the approval of the bids.
Okay, and the fee for the architect is baked into the budget?
It will be part of the overall budget, yes.
And that overall budget is what we see tonight, the 50,
That's construction.
okay, so what?
So the architectural fee and the FF&E, which finishes furniture and equipment, will be added on top of this. We've still got some programming to do. This is what we've anticipated the construction budget to be.
So what are the fees for the architect if we're going to be voting on?
Once I know who we're using, then I'll be able to
then-
tell you what their fee
Yeah, I'm
is.
so sorry.
No, it's difficult
Okay,
to
I'm
keep
sorry.
straight, but
Okay, I
yes.
understand that.
It is.
With this, they will base their fee on these budgets.
Okay, but tonight, just for clarification, is just the architect?
Yes, ma'am.
drawing. That's
Yes.
it. Okay, got it.
And, yes, sir, Mr. Young?
Simplify things. Wouldn't it be better that this comes from a committee and you guys as far as the recommendation? And we just approve this recommendation instead of us up here as a board trying to figure out what architect we want to use?
We can do it that way as well, yes.
To me, that makes sense. I mean, you're the ones going to be managing this. You're the ones going to be working with these guys. You know who you can count on, who you can't count on. And as long as the numbers come in close, I think you'll have the say so as far as who we go with.
That would be up to you guys as well.
I understand. You would like that motion changed?
I don't think that the board should be making these decisions. I think the ones that are having to work with these guys day in, day out should be the ones that's making these decisions. Or recommendations.
Right.
To the board, and then we approve it. It's like we do most of any of them.
You want to go to the experts?
Yes.
Understand. Anybody else?
I agree with what Coy's saying. I would like to hear a recommendation at least. I mean, the board gets the final say. I understand that, but I would like to know, as I'm not calling these architects and figuring out which one is doing which thing differently.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, Dr.
So
Sullivan.
just so the board knows, Mr. Lee, Ms. Bratton, and myself met and went over all of this last week, so that's where the recommendation came from.
Okay.
So we had a committee that looked at it and recommended?
Yeah, we had a committee that recommended the 4 architects you guys approved in December, and then Trey started talking to each of them to see where they were, where their timelines were. We didn't get a response from one of them about what they'd be able to do, and so then we had other conversations about them and talking with Trey. That's really where the Laverne High School going with GMC right now comes from, is that's Trey's recommendation, because that's where our bid was for Smyrna High. But we also would like to have other opportunities to work with other architects to see what else is out there.
It is the board's...
As many projects as we're going to have coming, I hope, in the next 12 to 18 months, we don't need to put all our eggs in one basket.
No,
Right.
I agree.
And some of them are fairly sizable. We currently only have experience with one. The county has experience with one of the others, but internally here, we do not. So that's why we kind of thought we might take a flyer, see how it goes.
So, Mr. Young, would you like for Mr. Lee to come back with a recommendation on how to do this on Thursday night? Is that what you're looking for?
I would just like to see for any project that Mr. Lee has input and who he would want to work with, because he's the guy that's going to be held accountable when it comes to these projects.
So if it goes wrong, Trey,
And let him make the
let him make the recommendation. Now, my question is, do you want that recommendation on Thursday night? Ms.
As
Darby.
far as this goes, these particular projects, I will say that I'm okay with what the director, because I have had some conversations with the director. I would be okay with this approach for this. I think we would look at it differently for the
Construction.
potential 3 large projects that are coming back. I would like the opportunity to look at all 4 again for those projects. But I think for these, there has been expressed a desire to try and utilize somebody else. And I'm willing to give these guys a shot. They're smaller projects. Sometimes the smaller ones can be more difficult than the larger ones just because of the time factor, and you don't have as much room for error. And it would get us a chance to know each other, to see if we can gel together. So I would be okay for Thursday night. I do appreciate that in the future we would come back and be able to have some input and make a recommendation, but I'm okay with this as far as Thursday night goes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Young.
I agree. We should get when we start really about to break ground, we should get recommendation from the department.
I agree.
So.
Mr. Tidwell?
Just to get clarification again then on the recommendation from y'all's meeting. I see you got GMC for number 7, but what was the other 6? What was the...
1 through 6, recommendation, Sherman, Carter, Barnhart.
Sherman, Carter. Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you. Request for portable purchase.
So request for portable purchase and installation, and so our portable requests, so you guys know this board agenda is due the Tuesday before it gets published, and our portable requests were not due until Friday. And so my request is actually going to be 12 double portables, not 10. But I will take whatever the board needs. Last year I asked for 12 and we got 10. So I'll read it and then tell you where they've been requested. Engineering Construction is requesting to purchase 12 new double portables at a location to be determined by staff requests and growth from general purpose 141 fund balance. Engineering anticipates a cost ready for students of $180,000 each for a total request of, for 12, it is $2,160,000. This is an increase of, it'll be $240,000 over last year's request where they went up in price. The reason to change for 12, and so here are the schools that requested them. and you're going to see there are way more than 24 classrooms. We purchased 12 doubles, then we get 24 classrooms. Rockville Middle School requested 3. Laverne Lake requested 1 to 2. Holloway High School requested 1. I will say, and I'll tell this to Ms. Drayton as well, they have open classrooms right now, so that would be one that I would probably just say we need to figure out the space in the building. Blackman Middle School requested 3, and I'll hit on that real quick. We just did an addition at Rockville Middle. They requested 3. Blackman Middle already has an annex at 3, which shows the need for the Beatty Middle School. Laverne High School requested 17. Riverdale High School requested 8. Stewart's Creek High School requested 1. And as long as the cap is still in place at Stewart's Creek Elementary School, she did not request 1. But if the cap were to be removed, she would need at least 1 as well. And so 4, 5, 8, 25, 33, so 34 requests. May have been 35, but I counted 34 that time of requests for portables, and this gets 24 classrooms. I will tell you, in meeting with Mayor Carr in December, and that we've discussed this a little bit as well. So we've had a lot of conversation, and I'll hit on a little bit of the director's update, but a lot of conversation around funding with our funding body. We had a budget meeting last week. We've worked with our county finance director. It hasn't been approved by the board, health and ed, budget, or county commission, but we believe we have enough funding for Beatty Elementary School, Laverne High School addition, and land on the north end. After that, he was adamant there is no more revenue for us, and his recommendation is going to be for us, if we don't get help from the state departments, to build portables or to purchase portables. I don't think that's an acceptable answer whatsoever, and so I reiterated respectfully that it's my job to ask, it is y'all's job to fund it. And so, however, we need 12 portables to be able to make it through till another building opens. That's just what we need for next year. That's where we are.
Questions or comments, Ms. Sharp? Yeah.
Yes. I know, Mr. Lee, I don't want to put you on the spot here. I know that you can rent these. Have we looked recently at renting them?
Have, but they're not in the condition that ours are, and typically they're singles, and they will be, it ends up costing us more money in the long run. If I knew these were going to go here and go away in 2 years, I would recommend renting. And I'm going to play devil's advocate, and that's kind of where I sit some days. The schools that have asked for them, if there is funding for a middle school, we're 3 to 4 years away from getting that school built. If the county tells us no, and I'm sorry, that's the side where I sit, I would hate to rent and then find out in 2 years we're not getting anything for 2 more, and we're 5, 6, 7 years in. My other concern is that the portables that we have at our 3 high schools that we're adding on to now, in theory, we're going to get a new high school in 3 or 4 years, and those portables leave when the additions are complete. I'm going to play devil's advocate again. If we don't get that funding for an architect soon so that we can start the process, those portables are not going anywhere, which means they're not going to be available to us in 2 years. So I'm banking on these having to be our purchase, and should they become available, we have somewhere between 20 and 25 that are older than my children. And I would like to see us get rid of those and keep these new ones as replacements, because I'm scared to move those anymore, and I don't want to put children in them anymore. So that's the main reason I'm asking to purchase, because I'm looking at them long-term as replacements for these old ones.
So there's nothing else that we can build or rent or lease?
We are looking, Brian Lewis with the CTE department went to Clarksville, Montgomery County. They have their building, their trades department. They actually have a design that they're willing to work with us. Brian and I have talked about it, trying to implement it maybe this coming year. We'll have to budget some money for it, but they build their own. Now, They're not growing at 10 to 12 a year like we are. They're 1 to 2. But I think it's a great thing that if we can I would like to say get a handle on growth, but we've been trying that for quite some time to where we only needed one, or maybe we got to the point that we didn't need a new one, but we could build a replacement for one that we want to get rid of. It's something that I'm working with the CTE department to strongly look at us building our own in the future when we can get this. And I'm hoping maybe this is it. But I thought that 3 or 4 years ago as well.
I'm with Mr. Young because I know he's portable averse, and because we keep putting more and more money into it. Dr. Sullivan, the CTE money that we have, that $17 million, could we not use some of that?
It'd be very difficult because we wouldn't be able to put the CTE programming into a portable building to purchase the portables, because most of that equipment that we would use wouldn't be able to be used in the portable type setting, whether it's the flooring or whatever the clearance is going to have to be for the roof. It'd be hard to use that.
A large number of our CTE programs do require additional space and special things like water and sewer, and some of it's the equipment's very heavy, and a portable floor is not designed to withstand the equipment that we would need to put in it.
No, let me rephrase my question.
Yeah.
Because it is a CTE program that we're building, can we not use that money to put into that program?
Oh, yes, we could. Yes,
Okay.
we absolutely could do that. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Blonde
that's-
moment.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question.
Mr. Young?
But if we're gonna be spending money on portables, that's gonna be money that we spend anyway. So let's put that money toward our own buildings that we can design, and it'll be a more marketable building to sell later on sell it.
And that's what I'm saying, the program can't build this many.
Right.
But I agree with you, going forward, that's what CTE and I are working toward, is starting next year after this, is that we don't buy anymore. We get it to a manageable number that we can build ourselves and begin to replace those that we want to replace with the ones that we're building.
I'm thinking that we might could even look at contracting this out and getting it done cheaper than what we're paying for portables right now.
Well, the thing about the student built is there's no labor involved.
Right.
And when we start adding labor, I don't know that we can build them.
Everyone in the board, example of a building at Home Depot, you buy just the whole of it for less than $5,000. It's 1224. If you buy two of those put them together, and then go in and finish the inside and contract it out, I would think you could come out with $60,000. So, I mean, it's something to look at.
That's a nice looking building. I think it's a granny pod. I think I want it. That is a great looking building. It really is.
I agree.
It's nice. Did you send that to all of us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll send it to Trey.
I thought
Send it to Trey.
someone had built one I saw on social media, and they were auctioning it off to raise money for something. I was like, oh, isn't that one that was?
Oh, what a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Bratton?
Yes, sir.
I agree again here with Coy that we probably should start looking outside the box. I don't know that we're not going to need portables or keep purchasing portables over the next several years. I mean, I just think that's, unless growth dies down, which it hasn't, that's just going to be the reality of where we live. But to couple onto the back of what he was saying about 180,000, that was an increase just over, the last year that we purchased these.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, I mean, I think it's pretty well known now, there's a housing shortage. And so I have some friends out in a different state that deal with just buying and purchasing, trailers, basically is what they are, and then putting them on land and selling them. And they're getting outrageous amounts of money just because there's a housing shortage. So this price is not going down. Unless we start thinking outside the box, it is going to get more and more expensive. And I just don't see, in the short term, and maybe even in the long term, depending on the amount of funding we get and how quickly we get it, I think it would be a reasonable thought to say that this is going to be a conversation we're going to have to keep having for a little bit. So let's look outside the box and see what's available.
Madam Chair.
Dr. Sullivan?
So the thing I think that's probably most discouraging for me is that at budget last week, and I appreciate it being unanimous, but we had a lot of conversation around using our own fund balance, and that even using the fund balance for design fees could be perceived as the county commission approving designs to do the entire project. And that was not the way our intention ever was. It was actually us paying for things ourselves. So I am concerned even us bringing the new high school to them to design may not make it through, even that's using our own funding. And so I'm hoping over the next couple weeks and months we can have those conversations of you guys approving us using our money is trying to keep us from having to continually hit the debt ratio because we're using funds that have already been allocated to us, and it's not us saying you're going to absolutely approve this project. We have to come back before you and ask for all those again. But I'm hoping we can try to stop some of that narrative because that's unfortunate when we're really getting scrutinized to use our own funding that's actually saving the county money.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Sullivan, I had mentioned this before because someone asked me if you would do somewhat of a mini camp on our budget because people don't understand the ins and outs of it. And even people on the board, it takes years for you to get your feet underneath you to understand all the nuances that go along with it. So I think the general public would benefit with something. Because we say 141, they don't know what that is. But everybody understands sitting down at their kitchen table and saying, we don't have any money in savings, we can't buy this, or we don't have enough money to pay this bill, we need to pull some out of savings, so.
Ms. Bratton, thank you. Dr. Sullivan, you said that when you met with the county mayor and our finance director and the county finance director, and they said they had money for the Black Male Mary construction project.
Beatty Elementary, yep.
Yeah, the Laverne High School for the addition, for the construction, but for the land on the north, it's just for the purchase of the land.
Correct, nothing else.
Construction.
Correct.
Where are we with that land, with those two lands that we were supposed to be looking at? Do we have an update on that at all? Okay, that'd be great.
And that does incorporate us using at least 30 million out of fund balance.
Right,
When we're talking about us covering it, there being a plan to fund it, that includes us using at least 30 million.
So how much do we have in our fund balance? I thought it was like $34 million, right?
114.
Oh, 114-ish, okay.
Yep. Michael Smith does not want us to go below 15%, so
Right.
that sits somewhere about the 75 to 80 million.
Okay, all right. So even if we were to use that money for the fund balance, will we be okay? Because that fund balance is needed in the summertime.
Yeah, we're fine.
We're fine, okay.
State law is 3%, and we have over 20. We're
Right,
good.
right.
We're good.
Right, well, yeah,
It's a good position to be in there.
okay, good.
All right, request for Eagleville School. Principal Tim Pettigo is requested to install a 400-square-foot sunshade for the elementary playground at a cost of almost at 15 million. That's not 15 million. $15,794.07. Funding for this project will be school-raised funds. Engineering Construction has reviewed the request and recommends approval. If it was 15 million, I would not be recommending to approve that sunshade.
Questions or comments? Number 13, facilities.
So this is a update for the Heart of Tennessee for American Red Cross. So it hasn't been updated since 2021, so you're going to see a lot of logistics here, but that's truly all it is. So Rutherford County Schools has a long-standing partnership with the Heart of Tennessee chapter of the American Red Cross to assist residents of this county in the event of severe weather events by allowing the use of school facilities for service centers and temporary emergency shelters. These agreements are renewable every 2 years. The last agreement was signed in 2021. At that time, we listed 18 schools for use, including elementary, middle, and high schools. Presently, their chapter is reevaluating facilities in an effort to depend more on faith-based facilities and unused buildings rather than interrupt the educational process and ensure the security of the students present if using schools for disaster relief. We'd like to continue the partnership between Rutherford County Schools using only high schools as service centers and temporary shelters on an absolute necessary basis. We recognize high schools have gymnasiums that provide excellent potential for sheltering because of accessibility and showers in a large event and are generally able to be isolated from the majority of the population, minimizing contact with students. Asking to consider renewing the facility use agreements with the county's high schools while removing elementary and middle schools listed. And you see the ones to be removed. And then the ones to be included would be Blackman High School, Eagleville School, Laverne High School, Oakland High School, Riverdale High School, Rockville High School, Siegel High School, and Stewart's Creek High School. Make it easier for us as well.
Questions? Comments? Number 14, resolutions.
Mr. Reed, I think this is all you.
Happy 2024, everybody. So we have 3 resolutions that the board will be considering this week. 2 of the resolutions pertain to TISA. The 3rd resolution pertains to the voucher program the state's proposing. The TISA resolutions were proposed by Ms. Rosales. Ms. Sharp has proposed the resolution with regard to the voucher program with the state. So I'll go through these one by one. The first resolution is, which is number 1 on your agenda, 14.1. It says, resolution requesting TISA funding modifications. In 2023, the state legislature appropriated $35 million for fast growth stipends and fast growth infrastructure, but $37 million was needed for fast growth stipends alone. The insufficient appropriation resulted in a pro rata reduction for all school districts, which actually resulted in Rutherford County receiving less funds than it would have received for growth under the BEP. TISA also utilized the previous year's enrollment data rather than current enrollment data, which results in fast-growing counties not receiving the full appropriation of funds which they should otherwise receive based on the number of students served. The attached resolution is proposed for adoption to ask the state to address these issues. So this resolution is the first resolution that you have before you. And this is the resolution of the requested modifications to TISA, fast growth stipends, fast growth infrastructure stipends, and to utilize current data rather than previous year's data. So this says, whereas the state legislature has adopted a new method of distributing funding referred to as the Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement, which is TISA, and TISA was implemented as a replacement for the previous funding formula known as the Basic Education Program, otherwise known as BEP, which provided for payments to support growth throughout the year. And whereas the new funding system provides for TISA fast growth stipends, the effectiveness of which has been hindered by inadequate funding, particularly for infrastructure spending, as well as a delay in funding for new students until the following school year. And whereas the General Assembly appropriated $35 million for fast growth stipends and fast growth infrastructure stipends, but the amount was insufficient as the amount of $37 million was needed for statewide fast growth stipends alone. And whereas, due to the insufficient appropriation, a pro rata reduction was applied to all school districts, which had the effect of actually reducing the amount Rutherford County would have received under the BEP. And whereas Rutherford County would have qualified for the fast growth infrastructure stipend, but no remaining funds remained for the same due to the insufficient appropriation. And whereas TISA was established as a way for money to follow the child, but the state is utilizing year-old and student enrollment numbers as opposed to current enrollment numbers for funding. And whereas the use of the previous year's data is detrimental to growing school systems, as school districts are required to educate new students based on last year's data, despite not receiving funding under TISA for the same. And whereas the use of the previous year's data also hurts school systems with high growth by depriving school systems of the full base amount of the growth stipend for ESL students, which necessitates school systems having to provide services for ESL students from monetary resources allocated for other purposes. And whereas the BEP previously provided for BEP growth payments for new students during the course of the year, but the TISA guide published by the State Department of Education does not have a similar provision. And whereas Rutherford County Schools would have received an additional $6,860 in funding from the state for the 770 additional students which Rutherford County has in 2023/2024, but TISA is utilizing enrollment numbers from the previous year. And whereas the State Department of Education does have current student enrollment information for each district, as enrollment is verified every 20 days in the Student Information System and the State Education Information System. Whereas the failure of the state to adequately fund growth stipends for fast-growing counties results in school systems with high growth having to divert funds from other school needs to serve high population of new students. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Education that is requesting the following changes to the state's funding distribution model for education. Number one, increase funding for fast growth districts. The appropriation of state funds for fast growth stipends should be increased, ensuring that children throughout the state have access to quality education. Section 2, separate infrastructure allocations. A separate appropriation of funds should be made for fast growth infrastructure stipends to ensure that funds are available for the same. Section 3, continuous review and adjustment. Funding should be adjusted continuously throughout the year in response to real-time enrollment reports received by the State Department of Education. This will ensure that funding adjustments are timely and reflective of current district needs rather than being based on the previous year's data. Be it further resolved that the Rutherford County Board of Education calls upon the state legislators, the Tennessee Department of Education, and other relevant stakeholders to consider these proposals earnestly and to act swiftly to implement these necessary changes. And that this resolution be sent to the governor, the state legislators, the Tennessee Department of Education, and other relevant parties. So that is the first proposed resolution that will be considered Thursday night. I'll go on to the second one unless there's questions about the first one.
Can I say something? Is that okay, Ms. Bratton? All right, so I asked, thank you for writing this. This sounds really good. Jeff, to bring this up because I have been meeting a lot with our state delegation and having lots of one-on-one meetings, and this is something that I've been bringing up to them and to bring to their attention of how the TISA funding is a great model in the sense that it does serve the student in the sense that if there's specific services like on the outcome side of it, it generates a lot more funding for that, and then it looks into other steps in the pyramid of what to help with the child. However, the difference is that, like explained in the resolution, that when the BEP format was in place, there was adjustments that happened periodically throughout the year for to factor in the new student enrollment, and they will get the exact amount they will have gotten if it was at the very beginning of the school year. So it didn't matter when the child came in, they would still get that full funding. The difference with the TISA funding is that regardless of when the child comes in, they're not going to get the whole entire funding that they will have gotten had they started the first year. So they wouldn't get funding for the base, the outcomes, the direct, and I forget the last bit of it. They're just strictly going to get just a base formula. So, and right now it's like $6,000. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is that that money that they're going to get for the new students is all coming out of one pot, and it's your stipends that are both your infrastructure and your student. But the way it works is that it first is going to look at your student stipend first before it goes into the infrastructure. And so whatever money is left over for the student side of it, then you get the money for the infrastructure if you qualify based upon your ADM. And obviously, we are a district that's growing, so therefore we do qualify for that because we are under that ADM. So like you heard that last year, there was $37 million that was already projected for what it will cost for all the new students that came in the whole entire state of Tennessee. And because there was only $35 million in the pot, then they had to use that prorated date. So we went from $6,000 to, I think it was like $5,000. And so that was a rude awakening, and in a very challenging way to to see that there's a shortfall in the formula and the way that it adjusts the numbers for new growth. And so that's what's been brought to the attention of the lawmakers up in, that I've met with all of them, and I literally have met with all of them in our state. And so they know this is coming, and I've got someone already that is willing to pick up is ready to pick this up and write and craft legislation for it.
Thank you. This is a question for Dr. Sullivan. If my memory serves me correctly, did they not tell us when they were selling the TISA that we were going to be getting basically real-time numbers and we would not be in?
Yes, ma'am. The money
Years.
follows the child.
Okay. Okay.
Well, it doesn't, unfortunately.
It definitely does not.
It does not.
Follows them a year later.
Okay. Yeah.
But
And that's what needs to be brought back to their attention, is that it doesn't, there was somewhere in the communication by the time it got to the bill, that piece of it, critical information, was missed, and it needs to be brought back to their attention.
can I bring up one point, Madam Chairman? There is one instance the money follows the child immediately, and that is for our Rutherford County charter schools that are authorized by us. They will get the money the very next month they open.
Wow.
So we get it the next year. The 2 charter schools we have authorized will get it immediately.
Wow.
So that is definitely something that needs to be fixed there, because they're all Rutherford County schools.
Agree. Right.
So I'll go on to the second resolution. This is, again, it's kind of somewhat of a technical resolution pertaining to TISA, but this is a resolution regarding TISA and capital funding. Under the BEP formula, square footage, and this is the O formula we had, as you know, that under the BEP, square footage of classroom space needed for a student was factored into the allocation of funds, but TISA does not include a similar type square footage calculation in its allocation of funds model. So this absence of the square footage factor fails to provide needed funding for counties with rapid growth by not providing the funds necessary to pay for new schools. So this second resolution addresses that, and it says, whereas the state legislature has adopted a new method of distributing funding referred to as TISA, and the new TISA model does not provide for allocations towards capital projects or the amount of classroom space needed for the proper education of a student, and whereas the previous funding formula under the BEP did utilize the square footage of classroom space per student as a factor in the allocation of funds, and whereas the omission of the amount of classroom space needed for a student under TISA disadvantages fast-growing school systems grappling to deal with overcrowded schools, and whereas in fiscal year 2019-2020, the state funding for the classroom component under the BEP totaled $406 million, now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board that the Board of Education requests that TISA be modified to reintegrate the prior factors of square footage per student classroom space so that districts in a growing county benefit as their number of students grow, and that TISA be modified to take into account the square footage per student in relation to district size and overall building square footage for districts that are experiencing 2% or more growth in ADM over 3 or more consecutive years, and that TISA be modified to remove capital spending restrictions and allow capital expenditures of land acquisition and new construction. So that is the second resolution that you'll be considering this week. Not sure there's questions or comments on that.
Yeah, I have something. In one of the bullet points, number 2, or maybe it's number 3, but number 3, we probably need to include that not to, because the BEP formula, the way it worked, it was that, so there were 46 different components on the BEP, and one of them was a capital overlay component, which gave money to the districts based upon new classroom space, and then it was based on the grade band. But there were some restrictions to it, and one of them, it was that if a district had hit the ADM of 2%, that will decrease. So can we include that it does not factor in the 2% to lower the amount, that it doesn't matter, like it just needs to stay?
Okay, are you addressing item 2 or 3?
The 3, sorry, because you said modify to remove capital spending restrictions, because one of the restrictions included the ADM, So if it hit the 2% ADM, it will lower the amount, because the thought was the more your district grow, the less money needed, because the local funds will take over. But for a district for our size that's growing, who needs to build because we don't have capacity, we need that funding so that we can use it towards those other, like for construction and things like that, for other capital.
I can revise the wording on that and make that change.
Yeah. And so the reason why I asked to put this in here is because I want to show you something that I show to everybody when I talk to them, everybody meaning the state delegation. How can I show that? Thank you. So I put together a presentation deck in that I meet with our state delegation and kind of go over why we need to make these changes to the TISA funding, or whatever it is that I'm wanting to advocate for changes that can be brought to the General Assembly and possible get them into be voted on as law. So this is one of them, but I just wanted to bring some things to the attention of why this was brought, why I felt like we needed to bring this piece. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm not going to go through the whole deck, but it's just, so the reason why I brought this is because the most recent comptroller report in regards to capital spending that is available on the website said that in 2019 and 2020, the state funding for the component, meaning what was in the previous formula for BEP that had the capital expenditure component, it generated $406 million across the state of Tennessee. And right now, I was told that by our chief of finance in the state that the base formula, what it did and how they came to that amount of $6,066 is that it took all those components, including the capital overlay, and it was baked into the base, and that's how they came up with that formula. But given what happened this year with us not getting that infrastructure stipend, I felt that they should go back and adjust the funding, the model, to include the classroom space factor. Because what it did is that it took the child and it gave a percentage of what that square footage is based upon the grade band. So it's not a one-size-fits-all classroom space factor or variable. It was based upon what grade band that child is. And so it doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. The calculation's already there. It's just asking them if they can please put that back into it as a part of their model in one of their tiers, wherever they think that it is. Because right now, the formula, the model, does not take into consideration classroom space, and it just really neglects to acknowledge that that some of our districts are growing and we need funding for capital expenditures. And so I just asked them to marry those together and to add that. And so and so my last slide is the one that I normally pitch it to them, and kind of is just really the bullets that are said in 1, 2, 3. It's what it says here, but with the exception of adding that extra one where adding not to take away the funding for those districts that fall into that 2% or more growth in ADM, because that was what I pitched to them. So I just wanted to show that, what I had pitched them and showed. So that's it.
I'll go on to the final resolution. This will be a major matter for the state legislature this session, as you probably have heard. So this is a resolution on the Education Freedom Scholarship Act. So this is a voucher program that the governor's office is promoting. Governor Lee has proposed the enactment of the Education Freedom Scholarship Act, under which students will receive funding from the state to attend private schools instead of public schools. Under the proposed act, the state is proposing to pay $7,075 per student to attend private schools for the 2024-2025 school year for a minimum of 20,000 students, and to expand the program thereafter to all students. The act creates a voucher-type system by which public funds are taken from the public school system to be spent on private schools. The act strips public schools of much-needed revenue and has the effect of creating a two-tier school system for Tennessee. Families of means will have the ability to supplement the state funds to pay for private school tuition, but lower-income families will not have the other required funds necessary to pay for private school tuition. The diverted funds are also unlikely to be replaced by the state, which will result in county governments having to increase property taxes to account for the lost revenue. So this resolution addresses the Education Freedom Scholarship Act being proposed. So whereas the Education Freedom Scholarship Act has been proposed requesting the state of Tennessee adopt a voucher program by which public school funds are diverted to private schools and private interests, and whereas many lobbyists and private organizations seeking voucher programs are out-of-state companies and organizations spending significant sums of money to advance their agenda through vouchers and similar programs, and whereas the public education system of Tennessee is best managed by Tennesseans for which it serves and not by out-of-state companies and organizations, and whereas the Rutherford County school system has been recognized as an exemplary school system in the state of Tennessee, and whereas the Rutherford County school system is the fourth largest school system in the state of Tennessee, which educates in excess of 49,000 students, and whereas the Rutherford County Board of Education recognizes that voucher programs and education savings accounts hurt public education, and whereas voucher programs hurt public education by taking dollars that otherwise go into the public school system and giving those dollars to private interests, and whereas every public school system in Tennessee has fixed costs to maintain a free public school system, and any funds taken from the public school system for private vouchers are not likely to be replaced by the state, and whereas school vouchers likely will lead to tax increases as local governments will need to increase property taxes to pay for the lost revenue from the state going to private voucher programs, and whereas a loss of tax dollars will reduce funding available for academic programs and teaching staff at public schools, and whereas school vouchers send public dollars to private schools, creating a two-tier school system not open to all students, and whereas studies of voucher programs in the states of Indiana, Louisiana, and Ohio have shown that students enrolled in private schools through voucher programs perform academically worse than they perform in public schools, and the New York Times has reported such problems, and whereas studies have shown that students attending private school through vouchers in Indiana and Ohio score lower on reading and math tests compared to similar students in public schools, and whereas voucher programs do not fix lower performing schools but undermine such schools' ability to improve and perform better, and whereas education savings accounts are the equivalent of vouchers and divert funds from the public school system to private schools and private benefit, and funds diverted to education savings accounts will result in higher taxes in order to fund Tennessee's public school system, and whereas diverting public funds through vouchers or education savings accounts results in no accountability of those funds to ensure that education dollars are actually spent on academically successful programs in schools, now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Education that the Rutherford County Board of Education opposes the Education Freedom Scholarship Act, school vouchers, and education savings account in Tennessee, as school vouchers and education savings accounts hurt the free public education system, divert limited state education dollars to private interests, have been shown to hurt the academic progress of students, and will result in a need for an increase in taxes to replace the funds going to private individuals and entities through voucher and education savings accounts. And that's the proposed resolution you would be considering on Thursday.
Thank you, Mr. Reed, for putting this together for us.
Sure.
Ms. Bratton, I do have a question. I'm going to go back to the motion over here. I mean, it's in the resolution as well, but the diverted funds are also unlikely to be replaced by the state, which will result in county governments having to increase property taxes to account for the lost revenue. Could you expound a little bit on that, Dr. Sullivan, as to what that looks like?
Yeah, so if we were to lose students for that, we would still have the operating cost of the buildings. And so if we lose, I don't know, 4 kids from Stewartsboro, 6 kids, that's not going to be enough for me to move a teacher anywhere. And so that's where you're looking at extra costs would have to come up. The other kind of portion of looking at that is that you still have the overall building that you still have to maintain. So we're not going to lose building space from it either.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, I'll just make a comment. We don't have a broken education system as much as we have a broken government. Our government is broken when it comes to this kind of stuff. It's all about the money, and it's not about the kids, and that's the problem.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Young.
You want an update on properties now, or do that at the end?
I want an update now, please.
So, as you know, there's a couple properties that the school board, the U.S. board members have looked at. I'm in discussions about pricing those now. When we get closer to an agreement on price, I can bring that number back to the board for your consideration and see whether you guys are approving of that amount or not. There are a couple other tracks that have popped up and we've become aware of since we've looked at those initial tracks. One of those is a very attractive site that we probably need to look at some point. It gets dark very early now, so I don't know when the board might want to look at properties, but I don't know if it's better to do it like at noon during the week, or maybe doing it on a Saturday. But I think if we're trying to do it during daylight, we have to kind of do it during the day outside the normal work hours for those people who are working. So I don't know if, I'm just kind of asking for a poll now. I mean, if we did it at noon during a weekday, is that something that's feasible for people to attend, or not?
I think maybe Mr. Young and Mr. Tidwell might be best to answer that question.
Yes, they're the ones that have full-time.
I mean, of course, I'd prefer a Saturday, but do we have to all go at the same time? I mean, if it works better for others.
You don't have to go all at the same time, but of course it's better to go at the same time.
Yeah, Saturday mornings is how we used to view this property years ago.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll see about maybe getting something set up on a Saturday, and I'll send out some emails about possible dates and see what works for everybody on that.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
I have a question. Where is this attractive site?
Let's show that so you can look at it. So I can talk to you after the meeting
Oh, okay.
tonight.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yes, we met today to discuss the ancillary products that we're working with the county general on for the RFP that will be going out the end of the month of January. So we'll have some more updates soon.
Just quickly, and I'll combine this with director's report, where we have started our budget cycle. So we had our overall principals budget overview at our December principals meeting. So principals and department heads and our assistant superintendents are going through right now having their budget requests completed. So meeting with their teams. The principals are due by the end of the day next Friday, and we start our principal meetings. They do one-on-one principal meetings with us on January 22nd. And so January 22nd through February, whenever that is, 1st, 2nd, 51 principal meetings to go over the budget. So it's going to be great. Nothing director's update.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine, that's perfect.
General discussion. Ms. Sharp.
I have a great announcement. Thank you, Madam Chair. I spoke with Mr. Evans earlier, and he's probably going to whip us up a great announcement, but Jazz Fest 24 will be April 27th, Saturday, April 27th. Those who want sponsorships for branding or just want to sponsor, contact me or Claire Maxwell or Katie Darby. You guys are still hanging in there with me, right? Okay, that's what I
Yes,
thought.
we're there.
So But we're ready to go. Thank you to the Fountains once again for this gift in kind. It's probably about a $15,000 gift to us. But this is for our middle and our high school students, jazz bands. And I'm going to tell you, people were blown away last year, and it's going to be bigger and better this year. So we need your help to volunteer, and we need sponsorships.
And I'm going to say one more time, you all saved Jazz Fest,
Amen.
literally for this town, and you are to be commended. I think
I
it's
had-
the best, one of the best things we've ever done.
I had a bunch of people who volunteered their precious time and helped.
But they wouldn't have done that if y'all hadn't have decided, hey, we're just not going to let them do this. And I appreciate it.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
I've got one more thing, if you
Yes,
if I
ma'am.
may. I spoke yesterday, one of the teachers called, who is almost a 20-year veteran, and they were talking about retiring, and they said things were going so well that they did not want to retire, and they were very happy. And they also got, through CTE, a lot of the equipment in the students, I won't say what school, because then you'll know who it is. But the students are excited about some of the things that are coming in the second semester and everything. So we're doing a lot of good things right. We're all pedaling the same direction, and it's so good to hear when you know someone who's almost at retirement age, young, but almost at retirement age, that thinks things are going so well, they want to stay.
That's great. Anyone else?
Madam Chairwoman, I have
Yes,
just a
ma'am.
comment that someone that I work with on another board came to me and said, at least we're not Huntsville. Huntsville, Alabama is exploding like we are. Hindsight being 2020, they have a unique situation in the fact that they had a high school that they sold about 8 or 9 years ago, and it's now a megachurch, Butler High School. Now they need a high school like yesterday, and they're going to have to go out and buy land, find property, and they had one. So I would urge us to look, don't just look at the moment, kind of look 20 years down the road, and sometimes things ebb and flow, and let's hold on to our buildings.
For sure.
Nothing is for sale, right? Okay. Anyone else?
Ms. Bratton, I got one more.
Yes.
Okay, so I know a few meetings ago, we had someone from the Capstone give a presentation about LED lights, and we were all, oh my God, that's so amazing, whatever. So now that we're going into this budget season, can we factor that into this budget, or where are we at with that?
Rough draft, it's there. It's been there for the last 5 years, but it'll be highlighted this year.
Okay, great.
And then we'll see where the money goes.
That will depend on if the county commission lets us keep 177, because that's where it's coming from. If they take 177, we have no way to do it.
Well, I know one county commissioner said in a meeting to the other county commissioners that were in a specific committee that once they came up with, meaning the county came up with a fund 177 for the capital expenditures, because it had 1 year, it bit them, where in the specific part of your body. So I hope that still is stinging from that experience.
I hope so, because that is paramount to our ability to be able to do capital projects. And if it went away, then every time we had an HVAC or something go out, we'd have to go to the county commission to get it fixed. I don't think that's a liability that they want.
But I feel that, well, what I can say is one thing, but I agree. I hope that it does not take away. But I would like to see that soon, or if we can bake it
It'll be
into
part of the budget. It will be.
budget, that'll be great.
It will.
Anyone else?
I'm sure Mr. Lee is holding his breath as we go through this winter season.
I don't want to discuss losing 177. Our maintenance goes to nothing. But yes, we are concerned about next week. We've already started looking. For those that haven't seen the weather forecast for next week, it's ugly. But we're working diligently this week. Not that we don't every week, but with a little more trying to take care of some of our older facilities.
Appreciate that, too.
I want to give a shout out to Mike Walls. He's our maintenance director back there, and he's the one who every hour of the day, along with Trey, we had 4 or 5 schools that really struggled with heat and air last week. heating. And so they worked to make sure we could still get of our schools there. Some of them are not perfect right now, but kids are in school and it's still comfortable. So that's our goal.
Anyone else? Ms. Darby?
Move to adjourn.
Ms. Maxwell? We are adjourned.